Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 53 of season 3 of Brody Sports Talk. My name is Sean Morgan, and I am joined by my favorite colleagues. I'm just kidding. These guys are okay. But no, they are my favorite colleagues. Caleb Walgren, Derek Rusnick. We are thrilled to actually dive into the NFL season for the very first time. Not the game I really wanted to see at first. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe seeing the Cowboys right off the bat, kind of it's a little bit foreboding, right? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of a win-win. I get to see the Cowboys lose, or I get to see the Buccaneers lose, and either way, I think I'm going to be happy. After I'm pretty sure I don't like the Buccaneers much more than Dallas right now. Just based off of how last season ended.
I suppose that's fair. Derek, what do you think? You think this is a good kickoff, or are you in the mood for something different?
So I do not want a 10-7 or 10-3 game just to kick off any kind of football season. So I think this is going to got some fireworks to it, because we all know the Cowboys are going to have to throw the ball all over the field. So, maybe we'll have some scoring in this game.
I think it might be a bit of a surprise, but again, it's just having to see the Cowboys. So what we're going to do for our Thursday night football going forward for the season is we're going to break our previews into a couple of different segments, each of them led by, us respectively. Derek, you have the trench war. Do you want to describe what the trench war is?
Yes, so everyone knows that the football game is won in the trenches. That is the offensive line and the defensive line. Whichever one gets the push is going to win the game 9 times out of 10. So that I am going to spotlight a certain lineman, whether that is an offensive lineman going against a defensive lineman, or the opposite, where a defensive line has to break through the offensive line of the other team. And I'm going to spotlight those people each week. And so, because offensive linemen need love, and so do defensive linemen, and we should know their names. So that's what the trench warfare is going to be.
Nice. So for me, I have the Skill Showdown. And what I'm going to do with this is highlight a particular skill player on the offense, and then what particular matchup defensively could give them problems. So, for example, when we get to it on the segment, I will talk about our pending battle between the Cowboys wide receiver core and the talented Buccaneers secondary. And we will finish things off with Caleb's coaching clash. Caleb, what is a coaching clash?
So all the coaches are trying to make sure that their players are able to stand out in a positive way on game day. And so I'm going to maybe highlight some coaches that people aren't as familiar with. We all know the head coaches. We all know the coordinators for the most part. So we're going to be going probably more into position coaches and looking at some of those in matchups just to see, what their background is, maybe where they're coming from, and possibly get some people that are on the rise or people that have been career builders just living as position coaches that we may have never heard of.
I like it. Of course, we will talk a little bit about the game, talk about some injury reports heading into the season, or heading into the game, and then we will do our picks against the spread. Now, interesting enough, while we're recording this, I am just realizing, now, you guys who are listening on your preferred podcast platform, whatever that might be, might not know, we are now officially on YouTube, which means we are doing video recording. And apparently, I decided that for this episode, I was going to spell the word injury INJURIE. So I think I may have accidentally copied from another portion, so I am actually correcting that literally as I talk. It has been corrected, so for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you just saw that update. Not really in real time, but as close to it's recording real time. But let's go and let's talk about, speaking of that injury report, let's talk about the injury report heading to the game. So a lot of COVID issues on one side. Caleb, so tell us who we're not going to be seeing on Thursday.
So the major COVID issues have been happening for the Dallas Cowboys. It was announced on Sunday that Zach Martin, their offensive guard and arguably one of the best players on the Cowboys, I double checked and he barely missed the Brody 100. He did receive votes. He would definitely be in the also receive votes category, and some people would probably say that we were too low on him because he could easily be a top 100 player. But so Zach Martin's going to be out. And oddly enough, when I was double checking the depth chart over at the OurLads.com website, Brandon Knight is who they have as his backup, and he is also out with COVID. So they're going to have to do some shuffling on the offensive line. And a backup receiver for them, Noah Brown, is also out. For the Buccaneers, there is one player that is currently expected to be out that is a starter, and that is their free safety, Jordan Whitehead, and he is out with a hamstring injury. That was announced today. Obviously, we're recording this a little bit ahead of time, so there's always some adjustments to be made. But never a good sign when you see two O-linemen potentially missing for Dallas when you need to have a lot of things go your way. And Jordan Whitehead is solid free safety, and they were really healthy in the secondary last year, so I think that they were wishing that he was healthy.
Yeah, it looks like Chris Cooper is next up on the depth chart at free safety, taking a look at our lads. So we'll see if he ends up getting the nod. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the game. So without further ado, Derek, tell us who is competing in your trench war and who just might win it.
Yeah, so we just spoke about one of the better players on the team, Zach Martin, and his backup being out for COVID. And so, of course, the offensive line coach has to make some adjustments. With that comes my favorite thing, former Broncos on other teams, because the Denver Broncos is my team, and I love to see when someone succeeds after getting drafted by the Broncos. And that would be Connor McGovern. He is the backup center, has also played some guard, and so he will be taking over for Zach Martin and Brendan Knight, based upon what the depth chart is at this point, or where they're saying he's going to start. He was a really great player for the Broncos, just was odd man out when it came to the future. He was drafted in 2016. He is going to have to take on Ndamukong Suh, a former Husker, Jason Pierre-Paul, and all, I think, 7 fingers of his. I think he has. And the big one that you always have to worry about is Devin White, the linebacker. So on that side, I mean, I am a huge Suh guy. I've loved him since he was in college, and it is. I'm usually an offensive line guy, but I think the defensive side of the ball is going to win this one. Ndamukong Suh is going to push around Connor McGovern and has a lot more experience and knows exactly where to place his hands to get him out of the way. So I think there's going to be blitzes on that side. And, I mean, yeah, you still have a tackle there. So I'm not saying that he's going to get on the outside, but they're not going to be able to run the ball that well on that right side. So we talked about Suh. Caleb, let me go to you and see how many more things I can rhyme. What do you think about that offensive defensive line battle? And are you still a Suh fanatic?
So I do like Suh when he's not stomping on my quarterback's neck.
Good point.
Besides from that, he's been a really fun player to keep track of in his NFL career. Arguably, you would probably say he fell off the map a little bit when he left Detroit, because in Detroit he was still a franchise player and he was up there with the team that drafted him. And then he's kind of meandered around, potential retirement destinations like Miami, Los Angeles, and now Tampa Bay. And he's still getting the work done. You know, he's in his 30s, but he's definitely going to be someone who's going to show up and push around on the offensive line. So I think Suh's going to show up, and he's probably going to get the better of McGovern on this one as well. I'm going to say that you called the trench war correctly, Derek.
It is going to be rough. I I've generally, and I mean, I'm sure that Caleb might agree with me here, considering how many years he had to watch. I do wonder how Mike McCarthy adjusts to, generally you look at this matchup and you look at the Cowboys' keys to victory and you compare them with last year. Honestly, nothing much has changed. This is still a team that wins by the strength of its offense. And, especially with Dak coming off of that pretty brutal injury, when there is a weak spot on your offensive line, you may see some ghosts. And that could very well impact their offensive efficiency. So I agree with Caleb. I do think you called this trench war pretty accurately. Let's move on. Let's talk about the Skill Showdown. And like I hinted, my Skill Showdown is basically a 3-on-3. And I'm talking about the wide receiver core of Cooper, Lamb, and Gallup against the Bucs secondary in Murphy, Bunting, Davis, and Winfield Jr. Now, this is a secondary that I believe was close to the top, close to a top 5 secondary. I think it was ended up being 7th or 8th in pass yards allowed last season. I know that people have talked about Murphy Bunting as being kind of a weak point, but boy, did he have a crazy playoff run. If you recall, he had picks in 3 games in the playoffs, including a pick in the Super Bowl. So he is maybe a bit of a streaky guy, but this is a offense that he is going against and that the secondary is going against that is going to look to make moves in the air. I expect this to be an offensive shootout. I expect at least probably 2 touchdowns from the Cowboys being thrown in the air and being thrown to receivers. Dak generally favors some of these speedy guys with, I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to be a special player for a long time. I'm not just saying that for the Oklahoma link. I know we have a lot of Oklahoma listeners. I do dread that he is in the same division as my preferred team. So I think that this is going to be the most exciting matchup. We got to see how the Bucs decide to limit some of these opportunities that wide receivers are going to get. And I actually think it's going to be less about what the secondary does and more about what kind of Derek talked about, how that pressure from the defensive line, from some of these blitz packages, are going to remove opportunities that Dak will have to throw effectively. And we're going to have to see a little bit of scrambling. We're going to see a little bit of improvisation. And I think that the Bucs secondary is going to do a good job at closing down distance, at limiting catch windows. And I have a feeling that as a result, the Bucs secondary is going to win my Skill Showdown. Collectively, do you guys agree, disagree, or do you have anything that you think I may have missed?
So I think you hit it right on the head. For me, if the Cowboys are going to win this showdown that you have, it is going to have to be 7-yard, 12-yard routes, not 25-yard routes. I do not think that CeeDee Lamb is going to be able to get down the field with an 8-second, 10-second drop back. I think that you are going to have to throw the ball 35 times versus 22 times in order to, because there's going to be pressure in his face. So he's going to have to get the ball out quickly. And I think that if nothing else, the Buccaneers will stop yards after catch. So I think that's where the strength of that defense is going to be, is putting pressure up front and then, allowing a 7-yard catch and not allowing yards after catch. Caleb?
I do think that this is pretty even. I do have to give a quick kudos to Sean that we give him a segment to talk about Skill Showdown, and he happens to bring up the only player that I think is on either team that is named Sean to be able to talk about 3 playoff interceptions, 4 career regular season interceptions, but did rise to the occasion, similar to how Sean does when he does his segment. So
so you're saying I'm mediocre throughout the the bulk of it, but when it counts, I show up. Is that what we're just
I
saying?
think when I give you the primetime spots, that you shine a little brighter than you do the rest of the time. Like if you were on host duties every time, that you would be like better. Similar to like you bring out the best in the power rankings.
Okay. That's a good recovery. I would almost appreciate the nickname Primetime, if not who it was already associated with. So
that's fair. I will step away from that. But anyway, I do think it's going to be fairly even. I don't know what determines a win, so I'm going to ask you guys a question because I think that it is going to be a very high passing game. I think Dallas is going to throw a lot because McCarthy doesn't tend to lean on the run, and he's not going to feed Zeke. Zeke may get up to 15 carries, but I'm not going to sit here and say I think he'll get 20. So Dak's going to be throwing a lot. Do you go over or under 300 total passing yards for the Cowboys in this game? And is that even enough? Like, do you call that a win for the Cowboys receivers? Or let's just say even just to receivers. So we'll take the tight ends out of the equation. Just to receivers, will the Cowboys have 300 yards of passing offense? Derek, let's go to you.
No. So just to receivers, not 300 yards of passing offense. You add the tight ends to it, then yes, I go over just because I think you're going to have to do some dump off passes. And I do think there's going to be a lot of passes thrown. So yeah, I think that we are talking about over 300 or under 300 just to receivers, over if you're talking about tight ends and backs.
I'm kind of bordering on the same thing, and I'm actually leaning a little bit more toward over. And so just for the sake of, being different, I'll go ahead and say over. One of the things I think that was forgotten last season with his injury is Dak is the garbage time king.
Ooh,
and
good
so
point.
if the Bucs go out to an early lead and are able to maintain that lead, and to be quite frank, I don't think that the Cowboys defense is going to be able to do a whole heck of a lot to contain the Bucs. And this is going to be a shootout, but I'm feeling it's going to be a shootout that edges in the Bucs' favor, and then they're going to be playing, comeback football. So Dak's going to be airing it out. So it seems to me like this is one of those games where he throws for, in the neighborhood of, 280, 290, like breaking that 300 plane and having, maybe a couple of touchdowns, a pick and a fumble, some, crucial turnovers. I do want to, if I was a betting man, I think calling a Dak Prescott fumble this game, it feels like almost a guarantee. It's just one of those when you're coming back and you have that rust, you have the game rust, you're going against the defending Super Bowl champions who returned basically everybody on defense, a defense that terrorized a lot of really good offenses. I'm just feeling it. I'm feeling it. So I think this is going to be a me going over as far as him having to air it out and picking up those garbage time stats, those good garbage time fantasy stats.
Well, I do think I'm going to go under on wide receivers as well. I think I'll say under the 300, although I do think that somehow Michael Gallup is going to have a 100-yard game. So I'm calling that out of nowhere, but
okay.
I feel good about it.
I can dig it. Well, let's speaking of you, Caleb, let's move on to the coaching clash. So who will be butting heads on the sidelines from across the field?
So I went ahead and went with a matchup that I felt might be the most lopsided matchup on the field, and that is the Buccaneers offensive line versus the Cowboys defensive line. If there's one thing that we have consistently called out on this podcast, it's that the Cowboys don't have a defensive line and that they are bad at it. We do ridicule their defense a lot, but the defensive line has gotten the majority of that brunt. And they have a new defensive line coach this year. They had Jim Tomsula last year. He got thrown out with Mike Nolan. And they brought in a gentleman from England, Aidan Durd. I don't know if I'm saying that quite correct, but he was one of the players that was an integral part of the International Player Pathway Program. So he was leading that overseas for a while. He was part of NFL Europe, if you were familiar with that in the mid-2000s.
Those were the
His
days.
career includes playing for the Scottish Claymores and the Hamburg Sea Devils. He never made an NFL roster, although he was on practice squads a few times. So you have a player in him that has an interesting background. Dan Quinn had him last year, so it was his first year as a position coach with the 2020 Falcons, and he was an outside linebackers coach. He came over, and he's now the defensive line coach. So it's his first year to coach that. I think that he's a little bit in the deep end, especially in this matchup against the Bucs' strong offensive line, and a very experienced coach on the offensive line named Joe Gilbert. Have either of you guys heard of Joe Gilbert before I just mentioned his name?
No, and I'm just for the sake of not trying to sound super smart, I'm not going to look it up in the middle of you talking.
Let's say no.
Okay. So Joe Gilbert played his college ball on the offensive line at Hamilton College in Clinton, New Jersey. If you don't know where that is, it's because no one has heard of it. Or Clinton, New York, not Clinton, New Jersey, my apologies. Clinton, New York. So he played there, ended up becoming a graduate assistant, and worked his way up through the coaching ranks over time, and became a head coach in the year 2000 for the School of Mansfield. So he mainly was a collegiate coach, but he started as a graduate assistant with the University of Albany in 1987. That is how long he has been coaching. Primarily offensive line coaching. And he's worked his way up. Eventually, he went to Toledo, UCF, and worked his way up until he became part of the Colts staff in 2012. That was the first time that he had a job as an offensive line coach in the NFL, and now he has it again with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If nothing else, I just respect the grind that this guy's had throughout his career to be able to persevere and work his way. I mean, basically, he's been coaching for about as long as I've been alive, and that's really awesome.
Oh man, he's been coaching for 2 centuries.
Absolutely. So I give a lot of kudos to Joe Gilbert. I think that in general, it's going to be exciting to see what he can do. And the fact that he has coached offensive linemen in college or the pros that I have a lot of respect for, I think that he's going to do a great job, and he's going to figure out a way to outcoach the first-year position coach in Aiden Durd. Sorry, Aiden.
So I want to point out something actually kind of interesting. So as you were talking, I lied. I did want to look a couple of things up. So he was the Colts O-line coach. He said he was assistant coach 2012, their O-line coach 2013 to 2015, and then assistant again in 2016 and 2017. So do you recall what happened with the Colts during that particular era? Is that fresh on anyone's mind?
That was the Luck era.
That was the Luck era. Now, what is one of the reasons why Luck decided that maybe he should step away from football?
He kept getting jacked around.
So during the couple years that he was the O-line coach, before he reverted back, I mean, they actually had a decent run, 11-5. I mean, to be fair, they were kind of weak 11-5, 11-5 nonetheless, not making the playoffs. And then when he reverted back was when Luck got that really bad injury, and then everything changed for him. So it's just kind of, I don't know, just trying to throw a wrench in there. I think that's a good point out. Maybe the Cowboys D-line coach is going to be like Ted Lasso. And it's just reverse. He's the reverse Ted Lasso.
You stole my joke.
How did I? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Here, pass it off to Derek. Derek, what do you think? Pretend I didn't say anything. I can edit it out. I'm just kidding. I'm not editing it out. But
So I just started Ted Lasso yesterday. So I haven't got too deep into it. Not enough to make that joke, obviously. Sean, you are the king. By the way, Professor Caleb, do I have homework after that history lesson? Because I'm gonna need I can write a 3-page paper after what you just said, but I'm gonna need an extension because whew.
No paper required. I just need to know if you're going with Cowboys +8 or Buccaneers -.
Oh, look at how smooth
What
of
a
a transition.
What a
Yeah.
transition. It's not even your episode to transition. What is this? I was going to make a
I
joke
felt
about
like-
I was going to make a joke about Hamilton College being founded in 1793 and asking you what you remember doing, for Christmas that year. But let's go ahead. Let's talk about picking against the spread. So actually, you know what? Hey, Caleb, you asked Derek first, so let's go ahead and let's go back to Derek. Are you taking Cowboys +8, or do you think that that the Bucs are going to cover this -8 line?
8 is a lot in the
is.
NFL, and especially with a team that we do not know what's going to happen. If Dak was coming off of a year from last year that we knew how he was going to feel and how he was going to throw, then I'd have a better chance at this. I'm thinking the Cowboys +8 because 8 is so much in the NFL, and you could have garbage time where the Buccaneers are just eking it out, where it's a 9-point game and Brady's probably sitting in the fourth quarter and Dak's still out there slinging balls to CeeDee Lamb. So I'm going to say Cowboys +8.
Okay. Caleb, what do you got?
I am going with the Buccaneers to cover. I feel like typically when we have seen the defending Super Bowl champions on Thursday night, that they have shown up, they are still hungry to prove that they are the strongest team, and they usually make for a not so entertaining Thursday night clash. I'm going to go ahead and say that the Bucs win this one by 13. I'm going Buccaneers 34, Cowboys 21.
Okay.
That is so many points. 13 points. Oh.
I'm actually going to take the Bucs -8 as well. I think it ends up being like a 34-24 thing. For me, I actually kind of get what Derek is saying about really a -8 line. That's a 2-possession game, and it's increasingly difficult to have 2-possession victories in the NFL with the way parity has been. Honestly, I think outside of looking at Patriots games historically over the last 15 years, it's increasingly tough to win consistently. But this is, I feel like there's no Super Bowl hangover here. I feel like I don't know enough about this, not even really revamped Cowboys defense. It's just the same guys. It's like the same guys. There's only been a couple of changes at all. And when we talk about our fantasy episode here later this week, I'm going to kind of reiterate that because I actually want to talk about a couple of these matchups. And for me, I don't think it's going to be as attractive of a game as I otherwise would like. Could be very wrong, right? Could be very wrong. But I feel like I know this Cowboys team decently enough. And I think it's going to be a slugfest for a little bit. And then I think the better team is going to pull away in the second half. So I am going to go with the Bucs -8. Again, I think it ends up being a 34-24. I think it's, at some point, maybe, I don't know, at some point maybe a 17-point difference before the Cowboys start trying to catch back up and the Bucs just kind of keep them at bay. Could be wrong. But that's it for us here on our Thursday night football season kickoff preview. Guys, it's the NFL season. It's here.
Yes.
Thank the football gods.
We are pumped. We are thrilled. As always, I want to encourage everyone to check us out on all of our various social media platforms. We are most active on Twitter. Sometimes I throw some stuff on Facebook every once in a while. But everything is found on our link tree, linktr.ee/BrodyTalk. If you're checking us out on YouTube, it's in the little thing below. Look down.
And subscribe.
Yeah. Slam that bell, smash that subscribe button. I don't know, whatever all these hip hop happening YouTubers say to do to whatever, things it is that allows you to listen to us more often than just happening to randomly stumble upon on one of our videos. But that's it for us. On behalf of Caleb and Derek, my name is Sean. We are Brody Sports Talk. We are signing out. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye, guys.